Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you for everyone who came today. I felt bad that all the people came, but then it is really cold outside today, so maybe you're. I hope that you're comfortable. I was quite nervous coming here, and I'm still a bit nervous. I'm really curious to see how it will pan out. But I also I was in this room, in this very room, about 10 years ago, doing a series of lectures about photography in Heidegger. Um, just in this very space, they went down like a lead balloon, um, and I think this experiment was never repeated again. Um, so I'm trying to do something slightly similar today, um, but instead of going and to be fair, you could easily do the kind of thing I'm trying to do today. You could easily do it with Heidegger, but I hope to suggest something different. You see, it says here notes on psychophotoanalysis, and this is, of course, it's a made up word and probably a made up concept. Um, but for me, it kind of reflects my own trajectory because for about 20 years, I was trying to figure out something about photography using phenomenology and existentialism and a bunch of sort of um, contemporary French thinkers. Um, and now I find myself trying to do something similar, but instead of photography, taking up psychoanalysis and psychotherapy. So in this talk today, I try to put these two things together and see what emerges, and that's in that's how I present it to you. It really is an attempt to gain a little bit of ground in these two fields. So my intro, or the hook, as they say, is these kind of images that are Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat filters that operate a bit like plastic surgery, or some of them do things like um, enlarge the eyelashes, the drama lashes filter, the bold Glover filter is TikTok, and the people who design these filters, they are kind of digital nomads. We usually don't know their names, like we don't know the names of people who built the cathedrals in the Middle Ages, but but they 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 spend their time designing these algorithms that change your appearance and make it into something else, something more desirable for perhaps. In the latest iteration, these filters are now, the algorithms are so sophisticated that you can even have a video with this filter applied. So you can move around with this filter applied to your face and it will stay. So it's not like a mask that, stays in one place and then you move it and it disappears. So I was curious to think about these filters a bit through this kind of my new kind of attempt to bring together philosophy, psychoanalysis, and the visual image. So that's basically what we will try to do. If we go a little bit closer into these images, then you can see how the, I mean, it's quite interesting to what do we mean by the real here in this context. But it is quite visible. You can see what this filter is doing. For me, it's a good occasion to ask about our relationship with technology, but even more specifically, what happens when we take such human qualities as gender, race, sex, hair color, eye color, skin. What happens when we take these parts of ourselves and let algorithms process them? You know, what is happening to our sense of ourselves? It seems to me quite an interesting thing to try to understand, because on some level we let algorithms mess with our souls. in the and that is the really the meaning of the word psyche in Greek. The word that from which psychotherapy, psychology, the psyche derive. So what is happening to the human soul when it is being manipulated um, algorithmically? This is probably also a good moment to suggest, and I think I see a continuation here from the things that Andy was talking about just earlier. There is a kind of a bit of a overlap. Um, because Andy was bringing Nancy to talk about what this kind of mass vernacular photography, what is what is it doing, and I'm very interested in that. That really is the question, and I'm wondering if it's possible to think about vernacular photography or mass photography as a form of as a group activity. And when I mean group in a psychotherapeutic context, as group therapy, where we sit around in a group and we share. Um, and then we should also share photographs. So there is a kind of sharing that seems to be fundamental in both these areas. I'm quite interested in the way this vernacular photography. Maybe it's not only a way, you know, I and we to take sort of to create representations of things that are out there, but maybe there is also to bring in kind of Buber into the Nancy discussion. Maybe there is also a I thou element in vernacular photography, and the thou is the mass, the people with whom you kind of converse through your vernacular images. Um, So this is another one of from the same series of filters, and I guess that this is maybe the key thesis that I want to explore here with you. Psychoanalysis, particularly the work of Wilfred Bion, we come to him in a second, offers a framework for understanding the psychological impact of photography and image manipulation, especially in the age of social media. And I thought that this diptych by Robert Frank is kind of is interesting in terms of how vernacular photography can be grasped as a sort of group, as a group activity, a group of the activity in which shared memories are being created, in which unpleasant experiences are being processed and and kind of collectively reflected on. So in that's basically how it's possible to maybe articulate the overlap or the similarity between therapy and vernacular photography. Both, in a sense, operate as containers for emotions. So that is the question: what starts to happen in our relationship with photographs, in the way we can read images or relate to them, if we start using a more kind of psychoanalytic framework for looking at them, and especially I think it's especially relevant with vernacular photography because of its because of the kind of the mass hypnotic effect it has. So to go into this sphere, I thought that I need a guide, someone who can sort of show me the way, and my guide is Wilfred Bion. Um, he so there's something interesting about him, and I will say few words about Bion and why I think he is particularly suitable for the task I set here up for myself. So that's him in 1916. He's about 20 or 19-year old. Is a tank commander in France in the First World War. So he been fighting for about 3 years in the First World War, and had some absolutely horrendous experiences. I will talk about it in a second. And he really, he really lost his mind in the war, and um, and then he finished the war as a young man. He studied medicine, then psychoanalysis. Then he did his training analysis with Melanie Klein, and he became one of the leading psychoanalysts of the British School of the Object Relations School. Uh, but fundamentally, somehow, one might say that throughout his whole life, Bion kept coming back to the experiences he had as this 19-year-old officer, um, trying to make sense of them. And he wrote 3 or 4 autobiographies. And you almost get the sense that all this studying of psychoanalysis, all the work he did on developing psychoanalytic concepts, was an attempt to somehow make sense of what he experienced um, in the war. He particularly describes one day, I think it was the 8th of June, 1918, like really literally days before the war was over. Uh, he is in a mud field on the border of France and Germany with his um, it's there's mist everywhere. There are shells exploding. He's completely disoriented. In all his biographies, he always emphasizes how cowardly he was, how was didn't have a clue what to do, how he was a liability. He was very highly decorated for bravery. But in his autobiography, he keeps explaining how he's the most useless person. The kind of caricature of a soldier. So there is mist. He's completely disoriented. He lost his tank. He doesn't know where to go. He is in one of these holes, great craters caused by a previous explosion, with a 17-year-old runner by the name of Sweeting. So they huddle together. Their shells are flying overhead. Um, and he described this sense of complete helplessness and absolute dread and fear, and the knowledge that it's only a matter of time before it gets you, the bomb or the explosion. And then this young Sweeting tells speaks to him, says, "Sir, why I cannot cough? Why I cannot cough, sir?" And he turns to look at him, and he realizes, he sees that the whole left side of Sweeting's body was blown away by a grenade, and he can see he's beating hard, and steam coming out between his through his rib cage. And Bion is horrified, and he vomits. Um, and then he describes this incredible anger he feels towards Sweeting, sort of talking about, "Will you write to my mother, sir? I'm going to die. I'm done for." And he tells him, shut up. He cannot take it, And what I want to say is that for Bion, somehow he spent the rest of his life, the next 60 years, trying to figure out something about what happened there. And I'm going to take three or four concepts that Beard develops in his attempt to understand, the psychic response to something horrific. And I will see if these concepts are any help in talking about the images that we had a glimpse of earlier. So um, these concepts are the container contained, which is probably quite familiar. The question of splitting, the good and bad split, and there may be more, less familiar concept of the beta elements, the alpha function, and the alpha elements. Um, so I maybe to talk about them in a little bit more detail. Um, so maybe first, if we talk about what does it mean um, to split yourself, like that's kind of fundamental, and also very important in Melanie Klein. And here I think Bion and Klein are quite similar. So in a sense, Bion is asking, he says, what is happening when there are parts of you that are unacceptable to you, parts of you that you cannot accommodate because they are too scary or too terrifying. He says that might be the most fundamental experience of a newborn baby. Because when there is no language, no concepts, there is nothing available, but yet there is this sense of dread that can be provoked by, for instance, a lack of nourishment or feeling of discomfort, wetness, or cold. Um, so I talk about he's talking about this inarticulate dread that the newborn or the baby experiences. Man, Melanie Klein kind of looking at that um calls it the schizoid paranoid position. She says it is paranoid because there is this dread of doom. Um, and it is schizoid because it attempts to remedy the situation of unpleasantness by splitting the situation by splitting it into the good and the bad. I don't know. Maybe you're familiar with these kind of concepts as the good breast and the bad breast. Um, but it's it's a it's an attempt to maintain some sort of sanity by separating, let's say, heaven from hell or good from bad, you know? And um, just like, when I was coming here and I thought, oh, I hope people not think that I'm bad at this, you know? And that's exactly how splitting operates. So somehow with these filters, I think it's interesting how what is happening when you are unable to accept some parts of you that are speaking of imperfection, of ugliness, of damage that kind of leads to destruction, leads to annihilation, might lead to, you know, death and rejection. So these are all these aspects of your personality are so difficult to sit with, that so difficult to somehow accommodate within you that you gotta push them away. And the filter, in a sense, allows you to do that. Um, the filter becomes the container. If you the filter becomes the container for all these impossible emotions, which really is the function of the mother. The mother, the good enough mother, as Winnicott would say, the good enough mother would be able to contain the tantrum of the baby, and by containing it, by making the baby feel that it's okay, and it's somehow it's not solving the problem. It's not removing the cause of the tantrum, but it's normalizing it a little bit and allowing somehow the unpleasant and the pleasant um, to coexist. But when this good enough mother, when this container is not good enough, is broken or leaky, um, then we kind of end up taking this early toddler mental stage, the paranoid android, the paranoid schizoid stage. We take it into, we carry it with us throughout our lives. So that's causes us to somehow, this sort of duck rabbit image is quite useful here, because we are only able to see one at a time most of the time, but we are always both. We are always both, um, but we're just unable to accept. It's kind of interesting to me how the filters fit quite neatly into that kind of framework. Uh, the kind of a slightly similar way to think about it is really through this this work by Man Ray, and also how the container allows creates a space where painful raw experiences are not rejected, and you're not becoming a bad person or someone who is not worthy of love for having them, but they can become part of your being. But what happens when this containing um, doesn't work? I mean, that also I thought is quite a um, interesting way of thinking about the container in the way the bride, or this is Duchamp, the loved glass, obviously, in the way that the bride is a kind of container. The bride on the top part is a kind of container for the bachelors, and the bachelors are like these algorithmically produced entities. They just float in the space. And um, so yeah, I when you look at it closely, and you see that well this installation was shattered once in a um, during transition, Dushan chose to leave the broken glass in place. That seems to me to speak about the failure of the container to contain the bachelors. So something is spilling out, something is leaking out, as Lacan probably would say. Something is uncontained. Um, this is another example of the way these filters might operate, and there is a sense that this is a similar example, a similar image to the previous Gestalt one. But here it's almost possible, I think if you try, it's almost possible to see both the skull and the woman drawing her, oh, looking in the mirror. You can almost see them at the same time, as opposed to this one, and it suggests a possibility of some kind of more of a larger containment. Um, and the maybe the most intriguing concept that Bion suggests, the concept of the alpha function. Bion is saying that we sometimes encounter things when we encounter raw reality in the world. Sometimes we encounter things that we are able to process internally and accommodate within ourselves. And sometimes the experiences are so gross, so horrific or scary that we are unable to contain them within ourselves. Um, so for him, the alpha function is this mechanism that converts raw experiences into something that we can live with. For Bion, the death of his runner Sweeting was an experience that he could not contain, and he lost his mind, as he says. Um, but this the David Hockney's joiner here, I thought it's quite an interesting way of thinking about the way this alpha function operates, because here the artist's mother is all these different elements. Some of them filter through the alpha function and form the image of the mother. But some of these elements are sitting there unprocessed. And what is happening with that? What is happening with the murders part of the murder? I think the Yorkie Moser is quite pointed. What is happening with the murderous aspects of the murder, with the punishing parts, which that don't necessarily form this holistic platonic image of the mother. So we maybe before we go to the last one, if we come here for a second, there is a sense that when you filter parts of yourself and you are unable to accept the ugly, difficult, scary parts of you, and then you become quite pure and clean. You become quite all good. You know, who wouldn't want that? You're all good. You are um not making bad smells. You are not making bad sounds. Um, you you polite. You disciplined. You keep yourself kind of in check, and that's the good you. But then what happens when someone appears on the horizon in your world who is not so concerned as you are in hiding these nasty parts of themselves? What if you encounter someone who is, parading their nastiness quite happily, and enjoying it, and it doesn't think there is anything to hide. Now, and that's something that Beyond is getting into in his book on groups. Um, but I think that you become very susceptible to fascism, basically, because this person who doesn't feel that they need to filter themselves become incredibly seductive. They become someone who embodies parts of you that you are unable to accept or admit. Um, you become very drawn to that person. You experience them as much more powerful than you are, because they point the way to a state of psychic liberation and peace that you are unable to attain, because there are parts of you that you had to reject, no? Because you were never given the sense that it's okay, to have a bad smell, you know. Um, um, so I think that's kind of getting to the maybe the last concept that is worth mentioning here. And I think it makes more sense in light of what I said, that this way of splitting into good and bad, which this suddenly to me this image appears in a different light, though I kind of knew it for many years, but I read it now in a different way through this Bionian framework. Um, so where is it taking us to? I think finally I just want to say that beneath the photographic images that we are looking at, there are psychic processes at play, and without understanding the psychic processes, we somehow lose the possibility of fully grasping what these images can do. So yeah, I think maybe I will stop here.